It's ridiculous to think that in a space where strength, endurance, and recovery, most important, they're the most important and the top prioritized things, that the athletes aren't using anything. Yo, today's video is going to be on Justin Medeiros and his natural status as a competitive athlete in the CrossFit space. It's a topic that I want to cover because I have a lot of people reaching out to me every single day asking me if this person's natural, that person's natural. They're asking me these things because I think I'm the only person who has made any sort of content in relation to people using performance-enhancing drugs in the CrossFit space. I think it's ridiculous that I'm the only person who has done this because I think it's very prevalent. It's ridiculous to think that in a space where strength, endurance, and recovery, most important, they're the most important and the top prioritized things, that the athletes who are in the top realm of this space aren't using anything. If anyone says, well, you just don't understand, you are a hater, you've never been there, I'm never going to be able to convince those people otherwise. They're going to think that no matter what, they're natural. They're going to think that anything that I say is stupid, but I'm here to try to inch you the other direction, that some people are using for sure, and then some people aren't using. Why do I think I can say this stuff? Well, one, because I'm the one who's willing to talk about it, and two, I think I've given myself quite a bit of time and knowledge, and I've done all of my work on this end to try to understand what happens when people use them, what it looks like when people use them. And it's not so much to just say, hey, look, that person takes steroids, but this is what happens when they start using them, this is what happens when they stop using them. I've done this through just about every piece of information that you can grab off the internet. This is through scientifically reviewed and peer-reviewed journal documents. It's done through reading books by people like William Lewin, who wrote the book on anabolics. It's done to listening to people like Greg Doucette and Derek from More Plates, More Dates on what they have experienced going up, down, and around through steroids. And it's also done through watching people myself, people who have told me that they use them, people who do CrossFit, people who don't do CrossFit, people who wrestle. You see what happens when they start taking, you see what happens when they stop taking, you see what happens when they just take it forever. Different compounds do different things. You've witnessed that sort of thing too. You hear it through the stuff on the YouTube channels where they're open about it. And the thing about CrossFit is that nobody's open about it. Why? Because they're drug tested. They can't be open about it.
Were you worried about getting caught in the drug test?
No.
Not at all. Why weren't you worried?
Because it was off season and I was not a high profile athlete.
Oh, so you're saying, okay, I'm thinking November, December, January. Yeah. And they're probably not going to team members and doing random testing.
Exactly.
So there was no chance. So you've never been tested other than at the games?
Yes. And at regionals when I won.
The regional, what year did you win?
2013.
2013, and they did test you there?
Yes.
That was a pee test.
I couldn't pee.
If you made your living doing something and all you had to do was be smart about when you stopped doing certain things, which is really all it is, make sure you stop taking that 3 weeks out, and no matter what, you're going to test clean when you go get your drug test at the CrossFit Games, which everyone knows you take at that time at the CrossFit Games. Or take this substance, which you know that they can't even test for if they wanted to. Or keep your testosterone this low because then you won't flag on a testosterone test. And then all of a sudden you're making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars competing in a sport that you love to do, work out every day, have fun with a bunch of people, and you don't have to work behind a desk. You're telling me that it's possible that these people aren't doing this thing when it's that easy? Sit there right now and I said, hey, take this stuff that's going to make you feel better, look better, and make the world love you, and I'm going to also double to maybe even 10 times your salary. You wouldn't consider it, and then all you got to do is lie about it. You got to lie about it, and then your entire family life reaps the reward of it. Think about that one for a second. And while you think about it, I need to remind you that this is a good point in time for me to tell you that I'm not a freaking doctor. I don't recommend that you do any of this. There's a reason that I've never done it. It's because I'm afraid of the side effects of all these things. People in their 50s and their 40s are dying because they've overused the crap out of anabolics. You never know what's going to happen. You don't know what sort of genetic predispositions you have to certain health and heart issues. I've seen myself that with caffeine, I've been taking it straight every single day at like 500 to 800 milligrams a day, that I can't stop taking caffeine. I tried for a month and I didn't like the person that I became, so I just started taking it again. And I know that that's not very healthy, but I just can't stop doing it. I don't want that to be the case with something as potent and potentially dangerous as an anabolic steroid or whatever sort of substance there's out there. So again, don't do the stuff. That's not why I'm doing any of this. I'm not telling you, hey, do the stuff and you win the freaking CrossFit Games. I'm actually going to do the opposite before I go on to talking about Justin Medeiros. So you look at the guy, he won the CrossFit Games. I just said all that stuff about people who win the CrossFit Games, and you got to say, there's no way that this guy is natural.
36 feet between Justin Medeiros and the title of fittest man on earth. Justin Medeiros is the fittest man on earth.
You'll say that, but you don't have all of the experience that I have learning about this stuff. Some of you may have more, but there's a good chance if you have more that you're not willing to make the content on this. So you look at him at the Rogue Invitational, he does something wicked, like he does a 352-pound complex on a clean and jerk.
Justin Medeiros is going to go 10 pounds better than that. 352.
Mayer. You see that bar fly up. That nice re-rack. Beautiful overhead position. He's still got plenty of power in the legs.
Medeiros almost lost that one, but able to save it.
And he rolls into the CrossFit Games, and he just wins the CrossFit Games. The year after Matt Frazier, who won the CrossFit Games year after year after year, he goes head-to-head with him and pushes him a bit, and then he bumps up a level, and it's all of a sudden, where is this guy coming from? One of the biggest things you think about when people could possibly be using steroids and performance-enhancing drugs, let's not get this twisted, it could be peptides, it could be growth hormone, it doesn't necessarily have to be anabolic steroids. Something that a lot of people get really wrong. Ricky Garard didn't get tested positive for steroids. He got tested positive for peptides. They don't test you for growth hormones. You can do blood doping. These are all things that can be utilized. And when you see someone come out of nowhere, it's a pretty big red flag that they're using something. So Justin Medeiros seemingly came out of nowhere, burst onto the scene, pushes freaking Matt Frazier in the COVID year, and then 1 year later beats Pat Vellner, who's been at it forever. And you think, okay, this guy has to be doing something, right? Well, don't get too far ahead of yourself. What you got to do is you go way back. What a lot of these people don't realize is that your Instagram profile is the biggest indicator as to whether or not you're using something. And I told you this because when you look at somebody, you can see big spikes and decreases over time. This has to do with their genetic potential. So Justin Medeiros is 23 years old right now, okay? And the first thing you can find on his Instagram, dating all the way back to 2012. Now that's 10 years ago. This is when he was 13 years old. Quick math, he might be 14, but I'm going to say he's 13. He might be 12. You see a picture of him overhead squatting with a plate. What you'll see is he has very similar shoulder mobility to what he's got present day. You'll see that he has a lot of muscular definition. In the same 2012 year, you'll see that he's deadlifting 270 pounds as a 13-year-old. When you were 13 years old, what the hell were you doing? I wasn't deadlifting 270 pounds. I wasn't doing CrossFit. I was sitting on my couch playing video games. In 2012, he got a muscle up. My first muscle up was when I was 21 years old. 21 years old, I was in the wrestling room. I can do 35 in a row right now, but my first one was at the age of 21. Imagine what would happen if I had done one at the age of 13. He was also a wrestler. It says he got first place in a wrestling tournament. Freaking that athletic and something that young and you're winning wrestling tournaments. It's a sport which uses your whole body. I know for a fact that it improves your endurance, your cardio system, your grip strength. It's a great sport for anybody who wants to get into wrestling. You've heard Chris Spieler talk about it. Justin Medeiros is a freaking wrestler. Doing muscle ups, deadlifting 275 pounds. You'll see he does flags. He's got awesome body control, a lot of upper body strength. He's got lower body strength. He does a 255 pound back squat. 155 pound back squat. Again, at the age of 13 or 14 years old. I've spoken about how in high school I could bench 300 pounds as an 18-year-old. So Justin Medeiros at 14 years old is back squatting 255. That time when I was 18 years old, I couldn't back squat 135. It was embarrassing. Bench press 300, couldn't back squat 135, and then all of a sudden I spent my entire life trying to learn how to back squat. To this day, Justin Medeiros at what I'll tell you is like a freaking 17-year-old could back squat more than I do right now. We go forward a little bit. At 15 years old, the dude's cleaning 242 pounds. I told you I like to refer to myself, I like to refer to a bunch of people, and you look at even Rich Froning. Rich Froning didn't have a great CrossFit experience until he was in his low 20s. But when I was in my low 20s, I walked into the CrossFit gym, I couldn't do 242 pounds. Definitely not something that I had introduced to me at the age of freaking 15. Age of 16, he's doing a standing backflip. I've never been able to do a standing backflip. When you do things as athletic as a standing backflip, it's just signaling that you've got great genetic potential to do other things that are extremely impressive, like possibly winning the CrossFit game 8 or so years after this freaking standing backflip. 350 pound front squat. I remember the first thing that I noticed about Justin Medeiros, and it kind of put a red flag in my head, was the fact that he was in the CrossFit games when it was the COVID year, and he hit that huge back squat. I think it was 425 pounds, and at that point in time it was 50 pounds heavier than me, and I go, okay, this dude is like 20 years old. What the hell is going on? How is this possible? What is this guy using? But then you go back, You look at the year 2015, and as a 16-year-old, he's doing 350 pounds. I believe I was freaking 25 years old the first time I did 350 pounds. It took a long time. It's something that when you are going through puberty, you have a lot of possibility to get stronger faster. His body's throwing all those hormones into you at that point in time, and it's a lot of the reason that a lot of these people get so strong at a younger age. So how are all these females so strong, and how is he so strong? It's like, well, this is what happens when you expose your body to load when you're at the time of your life where you have the most hormones being just thrown in there naturally. It's when people just get strong when they're freaking 30 years old for no reason. That's a giant red flag. Like, okay, this person looked like this their whole life, and then all of a sudden they explode. So I can go on and on and on about Justin Medeiros when he was younger, but the point that I'm trying to drive across is that when he was this young, he had a huge advantage being introduced to the sport and being introduced to weightlifting and being able to use his body and doing things like wrestling and doing the gymnastics movements, because he's going to reap those rewards for the rest of his life, even as early as the age of 22, where he wins his first CrossFit Games. 6 years ago, as a 17-year-old, he squatted 400 pounds. I just told you I couldn't do 135 as a freaking 18-year-old, 1 year older, and I do less than half of what this guy's doing. Yeah, he won the CrossFit Games. And then in the same calendar year, he does 440 pounds. That's 200 freaking kilos. That's a good squat for me today if I were to go freaking start squatting right now. And I'm 30, and I've been doing this now for more than 10 years. And he was doing it at 17. There's a video of him snatching at the filthy 150, 281 pounds. Age of 20 years old. Fast forward a little bit, 21 years old, and he's doing a 350 pound clean and jerk. So what you got to pick up through all of this is that he didn't just come out of nowhere. He has a huge log on his Instagram where you can go look at it. You can see every single step of the progression. And he didn't just come out of nowhere. You can look at his body structure when he was 12 years old and say, this dude isn't far off from when he was 12 years old. And yeah, he's put a lot of muscle, but it's because he works out every freaking day a lot. Puts himself under heavy weights every day. The biggest thing that you got to take into consideration are genetics. And it appears as if Justin Medeiros just hit the genetic lottery. Now, unless he started taking something when he was 12 years old, and there's no way in hell that was happening, it's beyond a reasonable doubt that Justin Medeiros is natural, and he is going to be winning the CrossFit Games forever, and no one's going to stand a chance. And that's because he has hit the genetic lottery. He apparently has the limb lengths and the muscle types and the aerobic system that's just going to allude to him winning the CrossFit Games over and over and over again. And unfortunately for people like Pat Vellner, his genetic potential isn't quite there where Justin Medeiros is. And if it is the true test of fitness, it's not like he's just going to fall off out of nowhere. If you have found a specimen that is the fittest specimen on earth and the test is as good as it's supposed to be, no one's ever going to beat him. Every single year you see that the people who fall into the top are always the people who fall into the top. Sure, the order shuffles around a little bit, but when you have 15 tests, if they're all tests that end up being a well-rounded test, the person who is the fittest on earth is going to pop up at the top every year. It's why you see people like Frazier win every year, or Froning every year, or Tia Toomey win every year. Before that, it was Catron for a couple years in a row. It's because in the world, you pick out the fittest person and you drop them into a cup and you say, okay, you're the fittest person on earth. And it's not going to be by chance that that person just doesn't win. And if you want to think about what steroids do, let's say that Justin Medeiros has a potential to win the CrossFit Games every year, which he does, and I believe that he will, until he just wants to stop winning the CrossFit Games. Let's say that he is 100 out of 100 on the scale. Let's say that there's somebody out there who's a 90 out of 100. And let's say that person who's a 90 out of 100 wants to start using performance-enhancing drugs. They might bump up to a 97. So it's going to give them 7 points. They're still going to get there, but they're never going to be as good as someone like Justin Medeiros. Justin Medeiros, who clearly has an advantage over everybody just from the way he was born. That doesn't discredit the fact that he works extremely fucking hard every single day to do what he does. Justin Medeiros is clearly the freaking man. Rocks the mullet. A lot of confidence. A lot of fitness. Super strong. I'm convinced that he's a natural athlete, which is going to be extremely disappointing to hear for some people who wanted to watch this and hear me say that Justin Medeiros is using a bunch of shit and that's why nobody can beat him. That's why he came out of nowhere. It's like, no, he's the fittest because he was born to be the fittest. He was bred to be the fittest. I say bred to be the fittest because at the age of 12, he was in sports. I didn't find very much footage of his parents anywhere, but you see his dad's got the mullet. His dad has a jacked freaking forearm. It's clear there's a muscle predisposition for these types of people, the Justin Medeiros family. And without getting too crazy long-winded about this, I wanted my first natty or nod to be on somebody who's winning the CrossFit Games, who will probably continue to be winning the CrossFit Games, who nobody has a chance to beat anywhere in the near future because the dude is only 23 years old. He's got his best years ahead of him. He's only going to be getting better. He's working with somebody who is clearly working really well with him. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's that you can do your own research and you can use the things that I've said within this video to go check out your favorite person and say, hey, what's the likelihood that they're using something? That way you don't have to ask me. Knowledge is power. I want you to do that so that you aren't screwed out of your money. There are a lot of people out there who are trying to screw you out of your money. They take some stuff, they sell some stuff. They say, hey, if you buy the stuff that I'm selling, then you're going to look like this. And that's not the way that it works. It happens everywhere, every single day. And I want to be the dude on the internet trying to help those things out. I want to cut the time it took for me to learn how to do something and give you an ability to do it a little bit better. So I hope you like this video. If you want more natty or nots on other people where I probably call them out for not being natural, go ahead and like, subscribe, comment in this video. Say, hey, I want to see if this person's natural or not. I'm like, all right, I'll go do everything I just did for you because you don't want to do it yourself and you like to listen to me talk. If you like to listen to me talk, I'll be here tomorrow. Andrew Hiller, out.